Let me ask you a question. Have you played any games within the last 5 years that have been jaw-dropping? We as gamers have to admit that gaming nowadays just isn't the same. I remember waking up Christmas morning, opening up my gifts to see games like Grand Theft Auto 5, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. Those. Those were good games. The games today don't reach those heights of expectations, and I wanted to talk about it. Around the gaming community, the consensus for the best year for video games would be 1998. We got the first Metal Gear Solid, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and Resident Evil 2. They all quickly blossomed into some of the most beloved game series ever, with two of them in the top 10 greatest video game series of all time, Zelda being in the top 3. The other two best years for gaming industry amongst gamers are 2007 and 2017. Honorable mentions being 2004 and 1985. Common theme amongst these years is how far back they were, with the closest year being 2017, which was 6 years ago. Why is it that older games seem to be better? Well, I think there's a few different reasons. One main reason, that's a little more obvious than the others, is money. Most gaming companies today aren't making games for the sake of enjoyment or even because they're passionate about it. We have games, mostly PvP games, that introduce things such as microtransactions and battle passes. Now you might be saying, well, why don't we just stop playing the games that do that? I did. Don't lie. We were all fooled into chicken dinners and victory royales. And that's no fault of our own. It's just the way our brains are wired as humans. We as humans tend to have what's called FOMO. I'm sure you've heard the term before, but for those of you that haven't, it stands for the fear of missing out. Companies tend to use this to their advantage. You see it in advertising all the time. Just look at toy commercials where the kids are having so much fun playing with the toys being advertised. Makes you want to get one, huh? But the way FOMO is used in gaming is most commonly through skins, be that Prime Vandal in Valorant, the Skull Trooper in Fortnite, or anything of that nature. We see our friends or other players having these skins and cosmetics and think to ourselves, damn, they look cool. And this leads us to buying those same skins. Or imagine being the only person in your squad without a cool skin. Makes you want to get one, huh? And as humans, we also tend to be social creatures. Well, most of us. And although I love story-driven games, which we'll talk about more later, I like to play games with my friends, which leads us to playing multiplayer games and equipping cool skins. Now another reason why gaming as a whole doesn't really feel the same is because of nostalgia. Think back to the top years of gaming and what you were doing back then. Most of us, it would look something along the lines of waking up and playing with our friends and or playing games all day. And then we flash forward to the current day. Maybe you have a job which takes up most of your time, or maybe you're a parent and have kids of your own that you have to take care of. Or maybe you're like me, you're about to go off to college and start your life, which really doesn't leave much time for games. This leads to us being starved for quality free time, which in turn leads us to being impatient. And as gaming companies, they need time to make great games, and if we become impatient, then some games are pushed to come out sooner, and when they're not ready. Cyberpunk. All of those things aren't as fun as just sitting down and playing video games all day. Today, that's just how life goes. So we think back to simpler times when we did just play games all day, and we glorify those games in our heads. And it leads to high expectations. Expectations that are way too high. Because how can you feel nostalgia for a game you're playing right now? These are some of the reasons I believe gaming just doesn't feel the same. Now, with all that doom and gloom out of the way, I don't want to leave you guys on a depressing note. I'll admit, I was definitely exaggerating at the beginning of this video. There are some games within the last 5 years that definitely did leave my jaw on the floor. Like God of War 2018. What a game. Oh my god, the story was fantastic. Sure, it completely redid that everything that God of War was, but it did it in a very good way. In Ghost of Tsushima, talk about mind-blowingly beautiful. When I first booted up that game, I remember my grandma was standing behind me and asked, "What movie are you watching?" And I thought the same thing. Graphics were amazing. In both of the Spider-Man games, oh man, the gameplay was something I had almost never experienced before. Being able to just swing around the cityscape was awesome. And my favorite game of all time, Last of Us Part 2. That game had me in tears more times than I can count. I won't go into detail, and I'll probably make another video like this about that game, but I have reasons as to why it's my favorite game ever. So, games aren't nearly... they aren't necessarily bad nowadays. It's just the good games are far and few between, and I think we just all grew up. So instead of saying gaming is bad now, let's try to put our nostalgia aside and look forward to the games coming out, but also give those games a chance before we say they're not like before. Because who knows, maybe someday we'll look back at these games today and think, maybe they weren't so bad.